I'm going to give you 5 ways to make sure that you beat a narcissist in court. So you're going to want to make sure you stay till the end. You're going to want to make sure that you save this video. You're going to want to make sure you share it out. You're going to want to make sure that you go ahead and watch it over and over again, because I'm going to give you all the ways to make sure that you beat a narcissist in court. Okay. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to remember the acronym, knock them dead. All right. So DEADD. So 2 D's, but DEADD, knock them dead. So the first D stands for document everything. And I mean everything. You're going to want to journal everything. You're going to want to document everything. In my Slay program, I actually have 12 different things that you're going to want to be documenting, but you're going to want to document everything with regard to finances, to your children, if you have children, anything that they do that seems out of the ordinary. I know it's a pain, but if you have a notes app or something, just note it, because you're not going to remember. But even if it's crazy, I don't know if I should write that down, but you just never know. And there's many different ways that these things come into play. So you will want to make sure that you document everything, whether it's a business case or a family law case, or it's against a business partner. Maybe it's a case against an employer or something like that. It always is something that you're going to need to be doing, is documenting. Whether it's a timeline form, you end up needing it for the statutes to prove different elements of a statute. You definitely need documentation. I also have a podcast where I ended up interviewing one of the people who use my Slay for Biz program, Sharon Scott. I highly recommend that you check that out, because she talked about how she used my program and it really helped her a lot. So definitely document everything. The next thing is the E, emotions. Keep them in check. You're definitely going to want to keep your emotions in check. There's so many different reasons that you want to keep your emotions in check. I mean, for one thing is that they want to trigger you constantly. They love to see you squirm, so they get supply from it. And you really don't want to give them narcissistic supply, obviously, because that's no fun. I mean, they just get the satisfaction of seeing you go crazy, right? I mean, why do you want to do that? But then the next thing is that they use your reaction against you. They go, look, there's the crazy one. There's the one that's the problem. And they will use that against you in a number of ways. They use the emails against you, the texts against you. They may even be videotaping against you. They use the witnesses against you, whatever it is. So definitely keep your emotions in check. They use it for custody, so many different things. So definitely E, keep your emotions in check. And it doesn't help you when you're negotiating either, if you're all over the place when it comes to settlements, because then you end up settling for things that you regret 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road. You're like, I didn't want to settle for that. Because a lot of times you're like, oh, I just ended up settling for that because I just wanted it to be done. I just wanted it to be over with. Or maybe you were just feeling pressured. Really try to keep your emotions in check. And by the way, if you're really, really struggling with that, because a lot of times when you've been dealing with a narcissist for a long period of time, you are in a trauma state, especially PTSD sometimes. I do have a partnership with BetterHelp. You can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. I do receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you anymore. We have a partnership with them because I wanted to have a partnership with a service that we could trust, that we could recommend. If you are struggling, go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung so that you can get the help and support that you need if you're having trouble with your emotions and you're having trouble with trauma. So that's the E. The next one is always wear the white hat. That's the A. Always wear the white hat. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that in that you want to be the one, if you end up in front of the judge, which that's what this is about, you want to be the one where the judge is like, hey, this is the person that obviously is the good one. Let the narcissist be the one who's badly behaving. A lot of times it's so easy to fall into, hey, they're behaving badly. They're doing things wrong. They did it too. I can do it too. What happens though is then you have a situation where the judge is just like seeing like two kids that are fighting. So for those of you who are out there watching who have children and you have more than one, what happens is they just are like, oh, both of you just stop it. You know, they don't see that, oh, well, they started it or they're worse. They just see two people who just are fighting. So you want to be the one who's consistently not being in the mud with the other one. Because if you are the one who's what I call always wearing the white hat, who's not engaging, who didn't respond, who didn't get into it, and the other one is always the one who's constantly the badly behaved one, then it makes it really, really obvious who is the bad one. And it's kind of hand in hand with keeping your emotions in check, but it's even one step much, much further than that. You really, really want to be the one who's just always behaving, always doing the right thing. So just kind of imagine that the judge is sort of walking around with you and watching every single thing that you're doing. Always wear the white hat. That's the A. All right. So the next one is don't go anywhere alone. That's the D, the first D in Knock 'em Dead. And we're going through all the elements of what to do to beat a narcissist in court. So, you know, this is because they're going to say you followed them, you did this, you did that. They lie all the time. So they're constantly going to be saying that you were menacing, that you were threatening, that you did this with the kids, or that you touched somebody inappropriately, or whatever it is that they make up constantly. And then you end up having to defend against these ridiculous claims. So you want to make sure that you have people around as much as you possibly can. If you have children, for example, have your exchanges for custody at daycares, at schools, you know, at shopping plazas or places where people are around, because you just don't want situations where they can make things up about what's going on. And in that same vein, by the way, you're going to want to make sure that even depositions are videotaped if possible. And I have actually a whole video on how to beat a narcissist in mediation. I talk about that in there, and you should definitely check out that video as well, because a lot of you who are trying to beat a narcissist in court are also mediating with a narcissist, and you should definitely check out that video as well. And I also do have a whole video where I interviewed Judge Lynn Toller. You guys should definitely check out that video too. She was the judge on divorce court for 17 years, and her video interview was very, very highly fascinating. So definitely check that out too. And if you guys are so ready to knock them dead, put knock them dead in the comments, because I'm so ready to help you knock them dead. And if you've been following along with how to beat a narcissist in court, and you've been following along with my acronym, you know there's one more D. The last D is decoys. It stands for decoys. And what I mean by decoys is you really do not want to give them your best offer or give them any of your best evidence or show them any of your cards or show them any of your hands until you're ready to unveil it in court or when you're ready. I mean, a lot of times while you're standing on the courthouse steps or even at lunch during the trial, they want to settle, they're ready to have settlement talks, or even maybe the eve before trial or a couple of days before, they're ready to have some settlement talks at that point or something. And you might be ready at that point as well, but you've got to have your strategy, your leverage, have anticipated, your focus on you, your position, that being on the offensive, my whole slay methodology. At that point, you do not give them your best offer. You do not show your best evidence. You decoy the whole thing until you are so ready to go. Basically, the way I look at it is you're building an invisible fence around them until you turn on the lights and they realize, oh my God, I'm totally pinned in. At that point, they have no choice but to resolve the issue with you or resolve the issues with you. So you're appearing weak, you're feigning ignorance, you know, oh, I don't know, I have no idea. Let them think that they're winning. Let them go all crazy on you. Allow them to go off. A lot of times that's good for you. It's hard. I know, because you don't want them to get away with anything a lot of times during the case. But sometimes if you have an ongoing case, it's good to let them screw up, because those little battles that show that they're screwing up help you to demonstrate to the judge who they actually are. So let them do that, you know, because then you can show patterns that they aren't doing what they're supposed to do, show patterns that they're liars, show patterns that they are bad parents or terrible with money or whatever it is that you need to show. It actually ends up helping you in the end, or that they have anger issues or whatever it is. So that definitely helps you. Sometimes it's really, really good to feign that you're weak, feign that you're ignorant. A lot of times, by the way, you can pretend like there's a particular thing that you really, really want, and it's not the thing that you really, really want, because then, you know, they go after that, you know, because they're going to go after the thing that they think that you really, really want, right? So let them go after that particular thing. So let's talk about sneaky secrets that you can use in any negotiation, but especially against narcissists. And what I say is, if you can negotiate against narcissists, you can negotiate against anyone. The bottom line is, when you're negotiating, all people want to feel like they've come away with some value. The thing is, no one's going to settle for their worst day. All people want to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. And that's why my book, Negotiate Like You Matter, is called Negotiate Like You Matter. And matter is actually the acronym for my methodology in that book. And M stands for my value is defined by me, because you and you alone define your value. And value can be internal or external, meaning that you have internal value, which is whole and complete and fixed. You know, we are all valuable as human beings. And then there's the external value, which is kind of defined by the market and all that sort of thing, you know, based on your skills and how much experience you have and all that sort of thing. But as human beings, we are all intrinsically valuable. But there are certain sneaky negotiation secrets that we can use to kind of win any negotiation based on just how you approach a negotiation, so that everybody feels like they're getting somewhere. Because if you want to get somewhere, you want to make sure that everybody is being acknowledged. So just thinking of it from that perspective, and especially when you're dealing with narcissists, because remember, they don't have any internal sense of value. They don't have that internal feeling that they have. They're trying to constantly layer it from the external. So you got to think about that as well. All right. So number one is start with areas where you might agree, and then work toward those more contested areas, the ones that are more hotly contested. And the reason why you do that is because that way you feel like you've got some common ground. That way you feel like you're building some momentum, like you're getting somewhere. Okay, we've already agreed on these things. Look, burn the bridge already. Why throw the whole thing away? Look at how much we've already gained. A lot of times, like, it's, oh wow, we've already agreed on 99% of everything. It's just these last couple of things. Why blow the whole deal on just these last couple of things? So you pretty much can like wrap it up because you've agreed on most everything else. So you start with areas of agreement, then you work up toward the more hotly contested areas. Okay, because that way you feel like you've gained a lot of ground, right? So that's number one. Number two is you let the other person start with the first offer. Sometimes that's a way of letting them feel like they've got some control, especially when you're dealing with narcissists, where you're dealing with somebody who is a more toxic or more volatile personality. It gives them some feeling like they got somewhere right out of the gate. And a lot of times, actually, it helps you because you get to see where they're coming from. You get to see what's most important to them. So you get to see where their cards are. It educates you. Honestly, it helps you. So let the other person start with the first offer. So that's number two. Let the other person start with the first offer. Let them have some control right out of the gate. That's number two. Number three is start with a whole lot more than you actually want. Now, this is kind of a tricky one though, because you also don't want to start with so much more that the other person goes, I'm out of here. That's ridiculous. If it's so offensive that the other person just thinks they're just wasting my time and they just are out of there, then you've totally blown the deal. So you have to be careful about how much a lot more is. I mean, obviously you want to ask for more than what you want, especially because sometimes people really do have to be beat up by the process. I think this is tough for people sometimes. They think, well, I'm just going to be reasonable right out of the gate. I just want to be done with this thing. Let me just show them that I'm being reasonable. Let me just show them that I'm giving up all this. And if I give up all of this right away, they're going to see how much I'm giving up. They're going to see how reasonable I am. And a lot of times, if you're dealing with a narcissist, they just take, and that just gets taken, and they don't acknowledge that. And they just want, to keep going with that. And that just gets shoved to the side and not even acknowledged at all. And you end up feeling frustrated and taken advantage of. I would just be very, very careful about that. I do have another whole video on psychological tricks to win any negotiation, especially against narcissists. And I would definitely check out my video on that. Number four is throw them off the scent of what you actually want. And especially with narcissists, because if you tell them what you actually want, they will definitely go directly for that. And especially just to get back at you. And again, check out my video on the psychological tricks to win any negotiation. So be careful about that. The bottom line is sometimes you just have to take your ego out of it, because they do just want to get back at you. And the thing is, you just want to get to a resolution. You just want to get to yes. If you are a reasonable person, narcissists just want to jerk you around. They don't necessarily want to just get to yes. They just want to continue to manipulate you and see you squirm. If you're a reasonable person, you just want to get to yes. You just want to get this thing done. You just want to get to where you want to go. You just want to get to your goal. Winning is the goal, right? Or get to your wherever it is you want to go, so that you can move on with your life, right? So you want to get to yes. And if you agree with me, put yes in the comments right now. Okay. And the last thing is mirror their emotional body language. so that they feel seen, heard, and valued. You know, if they're feeling warm and they're kind of on the table and down like this and listening to you, you can do that too. If they're back like this and up and this way, you can do that too. Because when you kind of act the same way as somebody else and talking sort of similar to somebody else, they can feel that. They can psychologically feel that. And people want to be with people that are like them, and they feel more comfortable with people that are like them. And so when you're mirroring people's emotions and their body language, then they subliminally and psychologically feel more comfortable, and they actually start to feel more like, oh, you know, I feel like we're in agreement. I feel comfortable with this person, and they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel acknowledged, they feel valued, and they feel more comfortable in coming to a resolution and agreement with you, which is what it is that you want. And remember, of course, if you do come to an agreement, to get it in writing, some kind of a writing, some kind of way of documenting that deal. Super, super important. So that's what I got for you. Sneaky negotiation secrets that you can use to win any negotiation. If you're paralyzed in negotiation conversations and you're just not sure what to say, maybe you're afraid of rejection, I have a simple 6-step foolproof method that will allow you to feel confident and powerful when you go into your negotiations. I've proven this method with thousands of clients, and now it's your turn to be in on the secrets. In order to win, both sides need to feel seen, heard, and feel like they matter. So your acronym is MATTER. You want to negotiate like you matter. MATTER. M stands for my value. My value is defined by me. The negotiation process is an inside-out process, meaning you start with the internal parts of yourself, and then you work outward toward preparation for that big day or that big conversation. So I always say that 80% of the negotiation happens before you even walk into the room. You start internally. Your value is defined by you. And I wanted to make sure that you understand that there is a difference between your internal value, which is whole and complete and inherent and infinite, and your external value, which I'll get into a little bit more in step 2. But just for now, remember that step 1 is my value is defined by me. Or as I like to say, you and you alone define your value. And remember that people will think what you tell them to think. So you need to communicate to them that you are valuable. Who out there wants to feel like I matter? Please put I matter in the comments so that I can see that and acknowledge you. Step 2 is A, which is analyze your research and create your arguments and your leverage. This is the next layer out. So remember, the first layer is your internal value. The second layer out is now you're going to build your external value. So this is going to be where you do your research, you create your arguments, you look at ways to create leverage. You're going to start figuring out what the other side's pain points are, what's going to motivate them, what is it that is going to get them to want to come to the table and have a conversation with you. And this is especially important to determine what the other side's arguments are going to be, because you're going to want to be ready to either speak to them or refute them, especially if the person is a narcissist. And that's a whole special category of their own. And if you are going to be dealing with somebody who is a narcissist, or you are dealing with someone who's a narcissist, I would encourage you to watch my other video, which I specifically spoke to how to deal with a narcissist. And I'll go ahead and put the link to that below the video here. But step 2 is analyze your research and create your arguments and your leverage. That's what the A is. Next up, step 3, which is the T. Step 3 is T. Remember, we're using the word matter as an acronym. So M-A-T. T stands for dress to a T, and then use powerful body language and words. Your clothes, the things that you wear, actually has a psychological impact on your brain. There's scientific proof that if you wear clothes that make you feel like $1,000,000, that you will feel more confident and more powerful. So make sure you put on that power suit, or you wear that power dress, or whatever it is that makes you feel amazing, because that's going to be important. The other thing is colors. So you want to wear certain colors that will communicate psychological message to the other person. If you want me to do a specific video just on colors, go ahead and drop a comment below and say colors, or colors please, something like that, so I know. Then you are going to want to use powerful body language and powerful words. And I can do some separate videos on those as well. But you want to make sure that you're doing things like a chin grab or a steepling, things like that, that make you feel, that you make you look and seem more powerful. And you also want to read the other person's body language and make sure that you're reading it correctly as well. So step number 3 was T, dress to a T, and use powerful body language and words. We're halfway there. The next thing is step 4. And step 4 is the next T, which is tackle the hard issues second. Or the other way that I like to put it is start with areas that you might agree on and then work toward the more contested issues. Because you want to build momentum. You want to build a feeling of trust. You want the other person to start feeling like you value them. And I say this even if you hate the other person's guts, even if you despise them and you detest every hair on their head. If you are having a conversation with them, then obviously there's something that you want from the other person. So if you want to get what you want, then you've got to acknowledge the other side and make them feel like they matter. So you're going to start with areas where you might agree, so you feel like you get that momentum going. And by the way, this is where you might pull out your leverage, because once you create that leverage, you want to use it at the very specific time that it's going to be optimum for you. And so here is where you may want to pull out what your leverage is. If, by the way, you are specifically going through a divorce and you're watching this video, I do have a different video just specifically on how to create leverage in divorce. And I will drop a link to that below as well. So make sure you check that out if that's your situation. So just remember that the second T in M-A-T-T-E-R stands for tackle the hard issues second. Next up is step 5. Step 5 is E. Keep your emotions in check. That's what E stands for. You're going to want to maintain control. It doesn't mean that you can't be passionate about your positions or your arguments, but by doing the work of the MATT coming before you, which means you've done your research, you've created your value internally, externally, you've done your preparations, you're going to be ready and your emotions will stay much more in check. The only reason why they go skidding out of control is when you feel like you're not really sure what it is that you're talking about, or that the other side isn't acknowledging you. But if you know your internal value, you don't have to worry about that as much. So E is keep your emotions in check. And we made it. Step 6. The last step is your R in matter, and R stands for, drumroll please, record your agreements in writing. This doesn't mean it has to be a formal contract, no signing in blood or anything like that. It could just be a follow-up text or email that says, hey, thanks for speaking with me, and here's what we agreed upon, or here's what we discussed. That way you eliminate any misunderstandings right away. So negotiate like you matter, M-A-T-T-E-R. I have a special gift for you. It's your little negotiation cheat sheet, so that you can remember each one of these steps in M-A-T-T-E-R, and it's free,
And just, it's in the link below. I'm dropping a link below.
And we're going to be talking about the psychological triggers, the different types of tactics that you can use to kind of push at narcissist buttons and reveal their true colors in front of a judge. So there's some strategies that you can use to kind of turn the tables and get judge to see who they really are, give you that upper hand in a case. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing you really need to know is what is going to set that narcissist off? What is a narcissist trigger? So remember that with a narcissist, it's all about image. It's all about what they look like, right? It's all about maintaining that perfect, beautiful narcissistic supply. It's that reputation. How do they look to the world? What can you do to get some cracks in that facade? So, you really should be starting that early on, long before you get in front of the courtroom. And that's what I teach people how to do through my SLAY method, which stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and you. So getting that leverage prepared ahead of time to expose them will really, really help when you get to that cross-examination, when it's time to uncover what it is that they have on the stand, because their attorney is going to do direct examination of them. And so they'll sit there and say, I was perfect and I was wonderful and I did all these great things. And so what you want to be able to do is direct on cross-examination, be able to pick apart the things that they're going to say. So you want to be able to anticipate the things that they're going to say. So you want to be able to have summaries of their inconsistencies, summaries of their lies, summaries of the things that they've done, the things that they've said. You want to be able to challenge the lies. You want to be ready with that. And the more that you can do that, the better it is. Okay. So you want to be having as many exhibits as you possibly can to expose them, expose their lies, expose who they truly are, so that when they go to get them on that stand, they can lead them to act impulsively and beat them and trigger them. Imagine how powerful it is to show them, oh, look at here. Okay, you said this here, you did this here, you did this here. And then boom, 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 boom. That's what causes them to lose control at critical moments. Then we go to the strategic questioning. The way you frame your questions makes a world of difference. Because if you can ask questions that forces the narcissist to contradict themselves, or highlights inconsistencies in their stories, that's when they start to get irritated. And especially if whoever is doing the questioning, whether it's you, hopefully it's not you, hopefully it's your attorney or whoever, stays calm, stays here, that's when they start to get angry. They start to get agitated. So let's say you ask them about a specific event where their story has shifted over time, where they're lying. Oh, you said this. I remember specifically, we asked a wife about whether or not she had ever filed domestic violence charges against any other spouse in the past. And she said, no, she hadn't. Well, we pulled up something right from the records in that same county where she had filed domestic violence charges against her former husband, very easily, calmly, methodically pressing them on these details. You put them on the defensive and pushes them closer to an outburst. Remember, a narcissist hates to be exposed. And so when you can show them, you said this under oath over here, you said that you're saying this under oath over here, that's when their lies start unraveling. And that's when they start reacting in a way that shows their true nature. Does this make sense? It's so sweet to see. So sweet to see. Right? And if you think it is so sweet to see, put sweet in the comments below. It's all karma. Karma never forgets. Right? She never forgets. If you are dealing with a narcissist in a negotiation setting, I want you to grab my free Crush My Negotiation Prep Playbook at winmynegotiation.com. It's packed with tools and tips to help you prepare. If you are dealing with a narcissist, you need it, okay? And join my free private Facebook group too, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, and you can connect with others who are dealing with similar challenges. The next thing is using silence as a weapon. Another really powerful tactic is just to ask a question. It's a yes or no question, and then just sit back and ask a question. Just pause, or just when they respond, just stare at them and go, like, okay, I know that you're lying. Like if they're rambling, they're saying something that's incriminating, you just let them go, because you just know that everybody knows that it's a crazy, chaotic thing, and you just let them go. You just let them ramble. You just let it go. Nonverbal communication is another area where you can subtly provoke a narcissist. Maintaining eye contact. I've been very good about doing that. Strong, maintaining eye contact, being powerful, showing confidence with your poise, your posture, subtle facial expressions, just enough to unsettle them, looking at them through glasses or through your paperwork. I see. Okay. They're hyper aware of how they are perceived. When they feel like they're not in control of the narrative, they start to lose it. I've seen them go crazy where the judge is like, excuse me, Mr. So-and-so, you're going to have to get control of yourself. And when that happens, guess what? Document the outburst. It's so crucial to document the outburst. I've seen situations where they've lost hearings. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're taking my child, or whatever. When that happens and they break down in the courtroom, make sure you document it, because maybe the judge isn't even there at that point because they lost the hearing and the judge is back in chambers. Make sure you document that, because you want to capture that moment and write it down so that it's pivotal to show for next time, for the true nature of that person. It helps to sway. Well, and if it happens right in front of the judges, great, fantastic. And that's why I say to make sure to do video depositions if you can afford it as well, because it'll show that narcissist's true nature if you can get that on video, for sure. So if you found these strategies helpful, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure that you share it with anybody else that needs it, and drop a comment below. I would love to know what stories you've had in a court situation. Dealing with a narcissist in court is never fun. It's never easy. The best way to deal with it is not to even get to that situation. If you can get that case resolved beforehand, that's even better. That's why I provide powerful strategies to lock them in before you get to that situation, which you definitely can do. So today we're diving into a topic that could be the key to you winning your legal battle against a narcissist. If you've ever been in a courtroom facing off against a narcissist, you know how incredibly challenging it can be. They lie, they manipulate, they twist the truth, they do anything they can to serve their own agendas. But there is one crucial strategy that once you have it in your hand, you can win, you can expose them, you can take them down, you can walk away with everything that you want and move on to have your life. And that's what you want. That's what it's all about. It's about freedom. It's about having peace away from the drama, trauma, and chaos, having that freedom, possibility, and purpose. But this one crucial strategy is the thing that most lawyers miss, because they don't understand high conflict personalities. They don't understand narcissists, something that can expose the narcissist for who they truly are. So it's time to turn the tide in your favor. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to be equipped with the knowledge that you need to outmaneuver even the most cunning, most manipulative narcissist in court. So let's get right to it. The one crucial strategy that you need, that you can have to expose that narcissist in court, is something that often gets overlooked, and that is the power of documented patterns of behavior. Now, I know this sounds straightforward. I know that this sounds like, Come on. Let me tell you why this is so critical and why so many people, even lawyers, fail to leverage it so effectively. So you got to, number one, step one, understand the narcissist MO, modus operandi. Narcissists are masters of deception. In court, they present themselves as charming and reasonable, even victims of individuals. But behind this facade lies a pattern of abusive, manipulative behavior that they've likely been engaging in for years. The key to exposing them is not just in pointing out individual incidents of bad behavior, but you have to have a way to spin it by demonstrating consistent patterns of actions that reveal their true character. Imagine you're in court and a narcissist is trying to convince the judge that they're this innocent party. And it's very easy to do sometimes if you, for example, are the one with the money, or you're the one with the power job, and they're the ones with like the lesser position. Maybe you have one single instance where you lost it. You sent a nasty email, or you were caught in a stressed out situation. If you can show a series of text messages or emails or witness testimonies or all of this strung together where they paint a picture of demonstrated behavior over a period of time, it's much harder for them to deny, where they were obstinate, where they were refused, they didn't respond. That is where you can demonstrate a repeated pattern over time, vexatious pattern, harassing behavior, overarching demonstrated pattern. That's where you want to argue. So how do you go about gathering? Number two, gathering and presenting this evidence. It's all about documentation, and you want to collect everything: emails, text messages, social media posts, recordings, whatever you have, testimonies from people who have been witnesses, and start gathering the behavior. The goal is to compile a timeline. You want to have this whole dossier, a tome that clearly illustrates the pattern. And then you're going to have many different summaries, tables. So you're going to say date, email, tab 1, date, text, tab 2. You're not just saying this person did this once, but rather this person has a history of doing this. And here's the proof. That way, the narcissist sees through the person's charm when they're faced with overwhelming evidence of a person's manipulative behavior. And you can call it summary of lies and inconsistent statements, summary of times that wife repeatedly offered to do X and husband refused, or summary of times that wife was late, or whatever it was. And so that you can demonstrate a pattern of consistent behavior. And I've known people who are in my coaching program who have been trained by me throughout this process, who understand what I've trained them how to do this, who've gone into court with 125 exhibits like this and won everything, even when their lawyer didn't think that they could win. So if you want to get started with this, if you go to docthenarc.com, I show you exactly what to start documenting. Just go to docthenarc.com and it will show you exactly what to do and how to get started with documenting the narcissist, okay? Learning how to document exactly what to do is just the beginning. Creating that and turning it into leverage, knowing what to expose is the next step. Knowing their diamond level supply versus their coal level supply. Their diamond level supply is their reputation, how they look to the world, what it is that they're trying to portray. I'm this good person, or I'm this victim. You have to know what it is in their behavior, or what it is that they're trying to portray, and then threaten that form of supply, because the supply that they're getting from manipulating you, from keeping you in this game, that's a strong source of supply for them as well. So you've got to be prepared to have them let go of that stronghold. Most lawyers do not understand that. They miss that. And this is the strategy. This is where most lawyers drop the ball. It's not just about showing the narcissist behavior. It's about linking that behavior to the legal issues at hand. So for instance, if you're in a custody battle, you want to demonstrate how the narcissist pattern of manipulation directly impacts their ability to co-parent effectively. If it's a financial dispute, show how their consistent dishonesty and lack of transparency have led to a financial misconduct. The goal is to make the judge care, right? Because they only care about the law. So you want to weave that in. See, this isn't just about who's more likable or the fact that they're a narcissist. They don't care about that, but you want to weave it into the law. And hey, they don't like it if it's violating the law. So that's step 3, weave it into the law. Step 4, let's talk about the common mistakes to avoid here. Don't rely on character witnesses alone. I know so many times I've talked to people and they're like, I've got 40,000 witnesses. I've got this baseball coach and I've got my neighbor and I've got my sister-in-law. There's only so many hours in a day when you've got these hearings. You're not going to be able to parade in half the town, and the judge has no patience for that, and you don't want to be paying your lawyer for all that time either. It's great to have people who can testify as to the narcissist behavior, but the testimony can be dismissed as biased, for one thing. Real hard evidence is so much better. So things that can't be refuted, things that can't be explained away is going to be so much better. If you've got text messages where they said something or in their own hand, it's better. Okay. Second, do not get emotional. You know, narcissists are experts at pushing your buttons, especially in court or during depositions or anything like that. Do not allow them to push your buttons. They're going to make faces at you. They're going to roll their eyes. They're going to say things. Do not take the bait. Put your invisible shield down around you. Don't even look over there. Just expect that that's what they're going to do. Let it go. Let it on go by you. Okay. Just stay calm, stick to the facts, let the evidence speak for itself. Next, don't expect things to happen overnight. Narcissists are persistent. They're going to use every trick in the book to drag things out. You have to be in this to keep on going. Do what you need to do. Don't sit there and go, it's not fair. It's not, how are they getting away with this? You have to keep to your strategy. Have your vision. That's all part of my SLAY method. Have your vision. That's your strategy. Keep going with your leverage. Anticipate that they're going to do what they're going to do, but you stay 2 steps ahead. And then is your mindset. You're 100% knowing that you're going to win and you stay on the offensive. And if you need extra support, join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, so you have support helping you. If you don't have a therapist, I have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung to get the help and support that you need. We receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have help and support that you can trust. Just make sure that you are doing anything that you need to do to get the self-care that you need. And just say, I am doing this in the comments if you're ready to do this. Okay, so put I'm doing this because you need to do this. Step 5, stay the course, keep your composure. And I want to remind you that dealing with a narcissist in court is not just about winning the case. This is about you becoming the most powerful version of yourself. On the other side of this is you, your authentic, powerful, badass self, your peace, your future. Narcissists thrive on chaos and conflict. They're going to continue to be their narky selves no matter what. You are going to be so powerful on the other side of this. You're not going to let them succeed. They only win if you give it. Focus on the long game. Continue to document their patterns. Every time they do something that's frustrating, they don't pay, they don't show up, do whatever it is, just say thank you for the gift to yourself. Just say thank you for the gift and you document it down because it's a gift. because it becomes part of your leverage. It becomes something that you use against them in court. You use it to your advantage. Use it to reclaim your future. Use it to reclaim your power. Ensure that justice is served. It becomes part of the karma that you use against them. When you are dealing with a narcissist and you are getting ready to go to court, you better look out. I am an attorney and I have seen it. I've been dealing with narcissists in court for more than 20 years. And I can tell you that when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you are either for them or you are against them. And when you are in that discard phase of a relationship, they now go into you are the against them situation. It's now you are becoming public enemy number one. So now you're against them. So now gloves are off and they want to take you down. They want to take you down before you have a chance to take them down. So they want to make sure they get to you right away. Now, the first thing that you're going to see in this situation is they're going to act nice. They're going to act like they want to make this all amicable. Okay. So they're going to act like they want this to be all friendly and all nice and super good terms. Now, the thing that I'm going to say to you is that they have been liars the entire relationship. There is a reason why you don't want to be married to them anymore. I mean, people, like they've not been telling you the truth the whole entire time. Why? Why would they start now all of a sudden being truthful to you now? They're not. I mean, I have literally had to have the come to Jesus conversation with my clients. And, the clients just tend to be like, oh, why would my lawyer be telling me the truth? And I'm like, okay, well, I've had to literally get out emails with my clients and say, I know your soon to be ex-husband is telling you this. Here's an email I got from his lawyer today, which is telling the opposite of what he's saying to you. It's so mind-blowing to me, but they say they want to be amicable, but they're doing that because they're trying to trick you into signing something. They're going to say, you don't need a lawyer. We can do this on our own or something like that. But it's really just to try to trick you into signing something. Don't do it, people, okay? They're going to try to get you to settle early. They're going to try to get between you and your lawyer because they don't want you to get a lawyer, because they don't want this other person to have control over you. So they're going to say that your lawyer is bad. They're going to say that your lawyer is a shyster, or your lawyer is too busy, or that your lawyer is in some way not good, because they don't want this other person to have control over you. So that's number one. Number two, when that doesn't work, then they start to play dirty. They're going to lie in the pleadings. You're going to get this petition and it's going to be like, wow, I can't believe they said all this stuff. Just don't be shocked, because it's just going to say all kinds of crap. Don't be shocked. It's going to say whatever it's going to say, okay? You're going to feel the need to go insane, but they literally will lie and say whatever they're going to say. They will lie right in court documents. They will. And they will ignore court orders too, by the way. Just blatantly ignore them. That happens. They just completely play dirty. Number three, they will threaten you by saying things that are just totally false. They'll say things like that they're going to be able to take your kids away from you. They're going to say things that have no basis in fact or law. There have been so many times that I've had people come into my office and say like, I'm afraid that I'm going to be out on the street or something like that, or that they're going to be able to take my house away from me. So many times these things have no basis in fact or law. But I'll tell you something, you really do need to early on get your leverage over the narcissist. And I would definitely check out my video on get leverage over the narcissist, because you do want to do that early on. So check out my video on that. Number 4, they will manipulate evidence, including withholding evidence, certain parts of discovery, and they will start moving money around. They have no scruples. They have no conscience about that. They will definitely do that. Whatever they can get away with, they will do. All right, so that's number 4. And by the way, it's so time to slay the narc, right? I mean, slay is my program. That's strategy, leverage, anticipate, focus on you. It is so time to slay the narc. And if you agree with me, put slay in the comments right now. Slay the narc. Okay, number 5, they will use the court system as their sword. What do I mean by that? File ridiculous motions, file pleadings, use the court system to get at you, just to make your life miserable. So they use that as another way of getting supply for themselves. So whatever supply they were getting from you during the relationship, they're now going to trade that by getting supply by just making you miserable now. And they use the court system as their sword, as a way of getting supply. So filing motions, filing false motions, sometimes just filing whatever crap pleadings they can come up with, they will definitely do. So that's number 5. Number 6 is the last one. And you definitely see this a lot with covert narcissists for sure, but all narcissists do this. They line up their flying monkeys. They line up their flying monkeys against you. This is the discard phase, is where you definitely see the birth of the smear campaign. They will line up those flying monkeys against you, including the children if they can. Really sad. But if they can, they'll start using the children, trying to get them to be on their side against you. So they'll say things, against you, but especially, other people as well. I mean, they've really started to plant those seeds early on, maybe even months ago, against you. Oh, so-and-so has a drinking problem, or, oh, so-and-so is so irresponsible with the kids, or something like that. I mean, they've maybe started to say things against you a long time ago, if they knew that kind of this was brewing and coming. So anyway, lining up those people against you to make it look like they're wonderful and you're the bad one. That's what they will do. It's a form of bullying. So anyway, those are 6 things to look out for when you are in a court battle with a narcissist. Okay, so number 1, I'm going to give you 8 ways to become powerful and deadly against narcissists. So you're going to want to make sure that you stay all the way till the end. 8 ways. And number 1, recognize the narcissist traits, recognize their behavior, know their triggers, and that way you will know how to provoke them. You're going to know how to become powerful against them. You're going to know exactly what they're going to be doing. And once you can see it coming. And that way you will understand how they're going to be behaving. That is one of the best ways that you can become deadly against narcissists. Number two is to be confident in your own self-worth and your own abilities. They absolutely hate that. That's actually one of the best ways to become deadly against narcissists, is being confident in your own self-worth and your own abilities. That's number 2. Number 3 is assert yourself when needed and make sure that they know that you are not somebody who will be walked over or used by others. That is so, so, so important. And let me tell you something that is going on with narcissists. You understand that there are three different phases, basically, to a narcissistic relationship. It's that love bombing, devaluing, and then discarding. And during that love bombing phase, and this is whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship. And I actually, in my life, had to deal with a narcissist in a business relationship. And so even if you're dealing with them in a business relationship, it's still the same kind of a thing. Sometimes that love bombing phase is also called the idealization phase. And during that phase, they are actually conditioning you. They're setting you up. They're looking to see if you're going to be a good form of what they call narcissistic supply, or what is called narcissistic supply. They want to see if they're going to be able to kind of get away with their behavior. They're conditioning you. They're looking to see how you're going to respond when they start devaluing you, when they start ghosting you, when they start acting in a certain way, when those red flags start popping up and you start to kind of go, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm going to go along to get along. I don't know if I should say anything. A lot of times it's just so subtle. You're just not sure what's going on here. You, a lot of times, are an empathic person, or you're a good person. They look for people that are good people who are not quite sure. And a lot of times it's encased in a lot of great other things. So you're like, well, there's a lot of other good behavior that's kind of good. So you're not really sure. And so what happens is you've been conditioned. And so now you have to start asserting yourself. If you want to start to shift the dynamic, if you want to start to change how things are going to be, you have to start incrementally shifting so that you're now actually changing the power dynamic. And that's what you have to start doing. So number 3 is asserting yourself when needed. And now you're actually no longer allowing them to walk over you. And it's actually it's going to start to feel uncomfortable for you because you're not used to it. If you've been a victim of a narcissist, you get nervous about how they're going to react. And they will react because narcissists, they'll start to have their tantrums, but you just have to kind of get through that phase. It's almost like having a 2-year-old, where you have to kind of get through that phase where they will react, and you just have to understand that that's what they're going to do. So that's number 3. And number 4 is sort of closely related. So number 4 is establishing boundaries with the narcissist, and including setting clear rules for what is going to be acceptable behavior, what's going to be tolerated, and avoid giving in to their demands, and being okay with understanding that, it may end up getting worse, and that's okay, because it will probably get worse before it gets better, but it will end up getting better. And understand that this is the only way to get a narcissist to respect you. And I do have a whole video on much more about that, and definitely check out my video. It's actually called "This is the Only Way to Make a Narcissist to Respect You." Definitely check that out. The next one is stay strong. Stay strong, especially if you are feeling low or vulnerable. Remind yourself that all the good qualities about yourself, just stay strong. The next one is know that you deserve better. Know that you deserve better than a relationship with a narcissist. And, right now, I want you to just put in the comments, stay strong, stay strong. All right. Number 7 is keep your distance. Keep your distance, because they will start to hoover you. They will start to come back. They're going to start to, try to test you to see if you're going to be weak. They're going to try to see if maybe there's some holes in your boundaries. They're going to see if maybe you are going to allow them to come back in some way, or that, maybe that there's some way that they can come back and get some more supply out of you. And so you really, really have to make sure that you're going to let them know that no, you are distancing yourself as much as possible. And number 8 is just remember who it is that you are dealing with. Remember, they are not going to change. Remember that you are not going to get closure from this situation. You are not going to be able to get them to understand your position. You are never going to be able to get them to acknowledge anything that you ever did. I mean, that was one of the hardest things for me. I had a business situation with a narcissist. I gave and gave and gave and gave. And I really thought that I would be able to have some sort of closure and that I would be able to have some sort of at least cordial relationship going forward. And I really, really worked hard on trying to make sure that things would be as good as possible, even giving as much as I possibly could. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you try, they just aren't ever going to be able to do that. You know, you're dealing with a person who is just inherently a broken person. And yes, you can have empathy for that person, but that doesn't mean that you can fix them. That doesn't mean that you're going to have closure. That doesn't mean that you can do anything for them other than namaste and walk away. You know, wish them well, walk away. You can heal yourself. You can thank them for the gift of showing you who they really are, and go and find yourself somebody who is whole and complete and deserves you and deserves your time. But, you know, during the worst, most traumatic time of your life, you have to make the most critical decisions of your life.
Mhm.
And so you're under siege, and it's bad enough when you're divorcing normally, but then when you add on the layer of divorcing a narcissist, now you're trying to make decisions about your money, your home, your children, all the things that mean the most to you, your business, you know, potentially, while you're under siege and while you're trying to heal yourself. I mean, you know, people who've been in narcissistic relationships for long periods of time are like PTSD. I mean, they're seriously, you know, traumatized, and they're trying to make decisions. So, you know, for example, this woman I spoke to this morning, she wants to change her custody arrangement. She said that, you know, when she entered into the custody agreement at the time, she was so terrorized by him. She just wanted to get out of it. She just wanted to be done. And so she agreed to stuff that she didn't want, that she didn't, now she regrets, you know? So what I'd like to hear from Tina is, how did you keep your mindset strong? How were you able to keep going and not give up and keep yourself healthy?
You know, it was a process. You know, the first few years, had I not been journaling and blogging about it, if I were to look back, I remember very little of it. I feel like I was operating in a state of trauma and shock and emotions. And for me, it was a few years into it before I started going to sit in the courtroom. And it was a way for me to learn about the process and, you know, how attorneys handle things and how, you know, different case law. And I became a fixture in the courtroom on days that it had nothing to do with me. And just there as an observer, because it allowed, you know, first for me to desensitize myself, because it just became part of my every, you know, so then walking into the courtroom when it was my own case, I was much stronger. And I was educated on what was going on and the motions that I was filing. And I didn't get it right all the time, but it helped tremendously. And what I learned is that so much of it is about strategy, and you know, judges and
Yeah.
attorneys, anybody in those courtrooms, they don't want to see your emotions. You know, that was one of the things I learned quickly is I would walk to the bathroom in the courthouse and have a panic attack or vomit or break down crying. But when I walked through those doors, I had to, you know, put my shoulders back and my head up and, you know, almost role play was kind of the
Yeah.
mentality I had to have. But and just forming alliances when I would be in the courtroom and I would see another parent who I could, identify as the healthy parent in the situation. I'd follow them out into the hallway and say, here's my card. Sounds crazy. I'd love to go to coffee with you because we have a lot in common. And that started building my local team. So, those were some of the things that I did in the beginning. And from day one, I remember people telling me, this is a 50-50 state. California, I think every state is 50-50 at this point. And that's, truly what you just have to accept that. And I refused. I couldn't even, grasp how somebody could, some people, it's truly, their exes are so good at impression management that may be in the cards for them, and then you're forced to accept radical acceptance, managing your expectations, that whole thing. But for me, I couldn't accept that was what was best for my kids, and that was the mentality I kept moving me forward, and really celebrating the little victories, which I consider to be anytime my kids are a little bit safer. And that just kept the momentum going until I think it was about year 6 that we were assigned a custody evaluator, and he really understood what I was up against. And his orders or his recommendation to the court were unlike anything I've ever heard of before. And it was so strict. And the judge ended up saying, I'm not going to adopt all of these because I don't want to micromanage this guy. But the ultimate ruling on year 6 was permanent supervised visits. So he could never again be alone. And the judge said, I intend for these to be final custody orders, which was huge. But as we know, a narcissist can't handle that. Their ego doesn't want someone supervising them. That's a huge threat. And so he jumped ship, and we didn't hear from him for a year and a half. But that was a year and a half of peace, and I was fantastic. So it's those baby steps. It's, what, today my kids are a little bit safer, and that kept me going. And when I did, there were so many times where I threw myself a huge pity party when I got slammed in court, and I just always set an end time. I can allow myself a day or two to be mad or angry because it's warranted. But then, Friday, I'm going to dust myself off, and I'm going to try again because my kids need me. There's no one else that's going to fight for them.
Absolutely. I just want to inject a little bit of the legal side of some of the things that you just said. And one is that, yeah, there is a kind of unspoken presumption, I'll call it, for this 50-50 thing right now in most of the states. I think there are a couple of holdouts. I think New York doesn't quite have that presumption yet, but it's not necessarily a legal presumption, meaning a legal presumption would mean that when the court sits down, when the judge sits down, then they're going to presume that this is what it's going to be. And then the other person who doesn't want that has the burden of proving why it shouldn't be that. So that would be a legal presumption. So it's not necessarily a legal presumption in a lot of the states, but it's kind of like an unspoken presumption. And so what I want people to remember is that what the real presumption is and should always be is best interest of the child. And I just had a situation with this with the judge back in January. I was at a hearing, and the judge, the baby at the time was maybe 5 months old or something like that. And the judge was like, well, you guys are coming to trial in May. So, don't bother coming in here if, that it's going to be 50-50 and whatever. And I'm like, really, Your Honor, before you even hear one word about what's in the best interest of this child, that there's 18 factors in the statute that you're supposed to consider. So if you're making a decision right here and now, then that's grounds for your recusal. And so, right away, he's like, oh, of course, we have to, consider the factors. And, and of course, he backpedaled right away. But you know, I want people to understand that, yes, it's that, but don't just give up on that. Don't just say that's what it is and be resigned to that. Remind the court, remind the judge, remind everybody you can that the standard is best interest of the child. And there is, I'm sure, a statute in every single state that has, you know, the factors that have to be considered by the court. So don't just like resign yourself to that's what it's going to be. So
So Rebecca, I have a comment on that though, because despite that, the best interest of the child, you know, anyone who's, you know, doing advocacy work, mental health work, you've been in the divorce space, in almost all of these cases, I'm not willing to hazard a guess of 75 to 90% of these cases, they're not taking into account the best interest of the child. And these statutes and these 18 points and all this stuff can exist. And in that particular case, it might have even been easier because it was a 5-month-old baby. But when I am seeing over and over and over again is cases where there is no way on planet Earth that the best interest of this child is being accounted for. So even if that's written into the law, and I suppose, yes, it becomes one more grounds of which an attorney could attempt to push the point, I still feel like most judges are going to reject that out of hand because they still feel like the argument of a parent that's antagonistic and toxic and undermining and invalidating and alienating and all the things that they are, is that they're going to say there's no evidence of that. You know, I mean, the evidence that you'd have to show that it's not in the best interest of the child is often quite physical. Like you lived 20,000 miles from the kid's school, or you travel 3 weeks a month. They'll run with that. But these subtle psychological factors, which I don't even think are subtle, I am not seeing a judge in America account for this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difficulty, right? Because it's like, it is so subtle, and the judges are always looking for the easy way out.
Yes.
I mean, and so it is difficult. So what you have to do is you have to be able to present a case in such a way that they can't look away. And you can't go in and say the person's a narcissist, or, you know, accuse them of any kind of something like that that's not readily supportable, you know, because that's when you're going to lose your own credibility, even if the person is the most flaming narcissist on the planet. So you have to go in with, you know, reams of supporting documentation as to what's in the best interest of the child. I mean, Tina's nodding her head because, you know, you figured it out. And I'm really amazed and give you such props that you were able to go in there and think of the idea of, I'm going to go watch other court proceedings and figure it out. You know, so talk more about like how you were able to do that, because, you know, there's so many people out there who can't afford a good lawyer, who can't afford, you know, a therapist. They can't afford anything. They're like, you know, you were talking about going to the food pantry or whatever. I mean, if it's like eating versus an attorney, you're going to pick eating. So talk more about that.
So, you know, I know one of the things I talk to parents all the time who will tell me, you know, I don't have time to go sit in the courtroom. You know, I tell them, you don't have time not to. I was working full time. You know, one of the things I didn't mention, when I left my marriage, you know, just so people don't, you know, go, well, you know, she has all these resources or whatnot. I left with $178 to my name, not a penny in retirement, not a penny in, you know, any type of account, literally under $200. And I was working full time. I had 2 little girls in preschool. The cost of preschool is insane when you've got 2 little ones. But I made that a priority. And, you know, however you have to do it, for me, that was the number one. You know, that was the best thing I could have ever done. It gave me so much insight into things attorneys used. And then I would go, you know what? And a lot of people say, you know, how did you win based on him being a narcissist? I've never used that word. I've written 4 books on the topic, but I've never used that word narcissist to anybody. You know, I focused on his patterns of behavior that were affecting my kids. And, you know, and pain, you know, seeing, and one thing I don't think people understand, if I were in courtroom A, I would present my case, my exact case one way. But if I were in courtroom B, just based on what I know about that judge, I would present my case completely different because they're
Mm.
human. They bring in their own biases
Yep,
and
they do.
personal, there's a judge down in Southern California who lost a child to a drug overdose. So she takes addiction issues very seriously. My ex-husband was an alcoholic. So you better believe I would hit heavy on the alcoholism in her courtroom. And I think people don't give that, there's no rule book for any of this. And,
It's so smart, so
So
smart.
smart, so smart.
thank you. So much of it was learning, so many learning lessons. And when I was in the hallways of the courtroom on break, I would make conversations with every attorney that would talk to me and, and you share my story. I couldn't afford their consults, but if they're bored sitting in the hallway, I would use that as an opportunity to introduce myself, let them know. And so many were so helpful to me through this process, just really forming those connections, knowing who every single player is in your system. Every evaluator, you need a notebook of just family court professionals. Anytime you hear something about one of them, or you witness an evaluator testifying in court, or a minors counsel, write down every detail about them so you can make an informed decision. If you are going to be assigned an evaluator. I think one of the things I was so naive about in the beginning, I was desperate for someone to listen to me. And so I would show up in court and I would beg, appoint minors counsel, appoint an evaluator. Somebody's got to see what's happening. And if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have said, here are my 3 selections for an evaluator. I don't care which anybody can choose from this list.
That's what
But
I
I
do.
would, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And then it gives the other side the power and control that they need to make that decision. But like in my case, the minors counsel who was appointed because I didn't know anything about him, he turned out to be a bigger narcissist than
Oh,
than my ex-husband in a lot of ways. And so it was a complete waste of time and energy and resources. And so really entrenching yourself in your system and learning the ropes and the people, you have to do it.
that's such great advice.
Mhm.
Really, really great advice. As you were talking, I was wondering if one of the other things that you did, because if you did, this would be a great idea. If you know that there are particularly good lawyers or lawyers who understand, what you're dealing with, pleadings are actually public information. So did you go to the clerk and read motions and look at stuff that other lawyers had filed?
So if I saw a case that closely resembled my case, I would take down their names and go find them, because in our court, we're pretty archaic. We have you have to get these little slides and you
Oh,
look at
okay.
all at the microfiche. And so I would go pull people's cases and just sit there and go through their whole case from
That's what
start
I
to
was wondering.
finish.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was wondering that you did. Yeah. So that's so smart. Really, really smart. But of course, very time consuming,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, um, so Dr. Romani, what would be, ways that people can kind of self-care and cope
Mhm.
during this process?
Tina, what is so striking about what you just said, and just so everyone knows, Tina is actually literally one of my favorite people on the planet, and she knows that too.
Oh,
So I really, I know the depth of her story is that, what's striking to anyone hearing this is that, and what I see in many of the clients I work with is that they get exhausted. They go to a place of full-on helplessness, hopelessness, and powerlessness, which are often some of the last stops on the train before full-blown major depression and anxiety disorders and all of that, like really major psychological and psychiatric, fallout from this. And as a result, the persistence you showed, Tina, is remarkable because
Hmm.
and what I love about what you did, Tina, was you weren't trying to control things you can control, namely judges who didn't get it, custody evaluators who didn't get it, court systems who didn't get it. You weren't trying to control those mechanisms. You were trying to learn about them. And of all the guidance I've ever heard, because you feel so powerless, give yourself the time to learn. Look up the cases, learn what happened in those cases, learn about the judges. I mean, I think that anytime we can give a person a sense of control, that's something they can actually do, is really, really important. But I do have to say, Tina, there's a unique resilience that you're manifesting, because I do think for people, the day in and day out, the demoralization, and no matter how much evidence they present to the court, it feels like no matter what, it's not working out their way, to the point where I've seen children who are, being forced to co-reside, and have custody with the more narcissistic parent, to the incredible detriment of the child's mental health. And the mother can't even make the argument in this case that really it is exposure to this toxic parent. I mean, he has completely worked that whole system beautifully. So to your question though, Rebecca, number one, I would say it's absolutely critical you reach out not only for therapy with somebody who gets narcissistic abuse. And I'm really put that point on it, because many, many times I actually don't think that clients in this space should be entirely targeted as though they have post-traumatic stress disorder. I think PTSD is a very different kind of phenomenology. And while addressing early traumas and all of that may be an issue, I think that there's something rather unique about the narcissistic abuse space, because it moves pretty quickly when a person gets lots of education. Because I am shocked in 4 to 6 sessions when a client really is helped to understand what happened, how their own early, their family of origin issues connect, and they see it, they're like, that's it. Like, I'm good. Thank you. I'm not a crazy person. Thank you. That's not how treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder
That is
works.
so good.
Yeah, it's very, very different. And now, are there many, many people out there who experience issues in their experience of a narcissistic divorce, physical violence, sexual violence, severe financial deprivation, coercive control, all things that are associated with PTSD? Absolutely. And I do think that is a subset of cases, but I think an even larger subset of cases are people who really are experiencing a more pure version of being absolutely confused by the manipulation. And once they simply get psychoeducation, which is how I got into putting out these YouTube videos, because not everyone could come sit in my office. There's just not even enough hours in the day for me to do that. I wrote books for this reason, thinking if people could get this, they may stop blaming themselves. So it becomes therapy with someone who gets it. Number two is also accessing the advocacy community. That is something Tina opened me up to, is that there are people like Tina out there who get it and put resources out in a way from a lived experience perspective. Her Facebook page is a robust resource that I refer all of my clients going through this to, and to her website. So those services exist, basically a support group mechanism of people who get it. But then beyond that, I really, really do tell people is that you are not defined by this experience. I actually think that survivors of narcissistic abuse who really then take this as a jumping off point, to the degree we're talking about it being a trauma, what I really do see is tremendous post-traumatic growth. People saying, I can see these people coming from a mile away. I am actually going to be a lot more careful in my relationships. I am getting rid of the people in my life who are not good for me. They actually do a whole clean out, like a toxic dump. They knock everyone out, because they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And they realize how many people in their midst were the enablers of the narcissistic abuse. And through a good support network, therapy, advocacy, support groups, you get people who say, it's okay. It's okay to remove people from your life, because they'll get a lot of guilt. Like, how dare you not speak to this one? How dare you do you? And so it's very much it's a process of healing, which I've got to tell you, I have seen many, many people soar. They go back to school, they take on the careers they thought they wouldn't, they travel, they feel like better parents. I mean, they really do come out of it. But all of that said, it really is a daily practice. Things like mindfulness, meditation, getting also treatment for other disorders that may have come up or gotten exacerbated, anxiety disorders, depression, substance use disorders that can sometimes flare up in the face of all of this. It's about taking care of you. And also keep in mind, Rebecca and Tina, you know this very well, is that people who've been through a narcissistic divorce or a long period of narcissistic abuse in their lives, self-care for themselves is the first thing they threw out. They stop taking care of themselves. They'll often start eating more poorly, gaining weight, making themselves at risk for things like diabetes. They don't get their regular healthcare appointments. They don't take care of themselves because in some ways, staying in a narcissistically abusive relationship is so sort of self-harming that you're like, why would I take care of myself? It's like you're a car, you just drive into the ground at that point. And that awakening of getting out of that relationship is often an awakening that you're this beautiful soul, this beautiful creature that deserves to be taken care of. So it's lots of enlightenment, lots of awakening, lots of education, lots of support, lots of therapy. And again, slowly but surely going into a wiser future.
Yeah, that's such great stuff. Really, really good advice. And I would want to, I just want to add in as far as like the legal perspective on this, something that people can do is maybe if you can't afford to have a lawyer for the entire process, but maybe have a consulting lawyer, maybe somebody that you'd be willing to, if you have a little bit of money, you could go in and just make sure that, kind of like what Tina did when she was sort of having these hallway conversations. But, if you
Mhm.
wanted to have somebody who was, taking a look at an agreement and maybe just reviewing an agreement for you and just spending an hour of their time doing that, something where you get a little bit of that legal protection if you can afford to have even that. Obviously I have a program for that as well for people. And, but if there's a way that you can access some help, that's I think really, really helpful for people to have access to that.